What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Something About Sports podcast. It is your host once again, Leon Edwards. Thank you guys for being here again with me. This is going to be episode 7.5. It's been a little while since I did one of these. I do want to give a little housekeeping. Hopefully this song will be coming soon. I can add a little bit more entertainment value, which I talked about before. It seems like you guys are still enjoying this. I want to just say thank you to everybody that's continuing to listen. It seems like the community's growing. So that's something that I'm very excited about. Getting more ears in here, getting more people paying attention. Hopefully we can just continue to keep growing and keep telling people about it, keep continuing to share that. So I'm excited to see this thing continue to grow. And I have a decent amount of stuff I want to talk about. Not too much stuff that I want to talk about today. You have a few things going on in the sports world. Baseball's in full swing, so a lot of it will be the Royals. KU football hired their new football coach. I'll get into that a little bit. It's been slow news for the NFL, but the schedule did come out, so I'll talk a little bit about the NFL schedule, and then we'll leave it there. KU basketball's been really quiet. The biggest story so far has just been that Ty Washington, which you guys heard me talk about a decent amount, he ended up committing to Kentucky. He will not come and play for the Kansas Jayhawks. That's really been the biggest piece of news. I know Bryce Thompson commits here soon. A lot of the indications are that he's going to end up at Oklahoma State, which he'll get to play the Jayhawks twice a year. We'll see how that all works out for him. But his final schools are Oklahoma State and Tulsa. I've been seeing a lot of the experts and insiders and all those people say they anticipate he'll go to Oklahoma State. Those are the biggest stories, though, for KU basketball. So I know I said last time I give some KU basketball stuff, but going back through and seeing what's been going on with KU basketball, there hasn't been a whole lot to give. So that's what I got for now. Today will be mostly about the Royals. We'll talk about KU football's new coach. We'll get into the Chiefs, and we'll call it an episode. I'm hoping this episode isn't super long, but that's just kind of my hope. I don't know how it gets, especially talking about the Royals, which I do want to talk about the Royals first. Let me go ahead and tell you guys, follow me on Instagram, SA Sports_podcast. I'm posting questions and things like that there. That's where I say when new episodes are up and stuff. YouTube, Something About Sports, out there on YouTube as well. You can find me there. And then lastly, rate me. Any other podcast platforms, rate me. Email me as well. So not lastly, one more thing. Email me, sasports913@gmail.com. I've been thinking about doing a Twitter, so I might end up doing a Twitter. If some of you guys hear this and think that'll be a good idea, hit me up on Instagram, hit me up in the email or something, and let me know if you think I should get a Twitter, if you guys think that would help engage with me a little bit more. Let me know. I don't know what you guys use more of, the people that are actually listening to me on a consistent basis. I don't know what platform you guys are using, what social media platform you interact with most. Let me know. I look forward to all the feedback. I enjoy all the feedback. So definitely let me know what you guys think in that regard. I want to go ahead and hop into this. Like I said, I don't want this episode to be too long, so I don't want to take too long with the preliminaries and stuff. I want to talk about the Kansas City Royals. The mighty have fallen fast, I guess we can say. The Royals went from the last time I did one of these episodes, the Royals were in first place at 16-9. The Royals are now 16-19. By the time you listen to this, I don't know what the record will be. It probably will be different, but they just lost their last game tonight. 16-19 is the record right now. Could be worse when you hear this. Could be better. Hopefully it could be better, but the Royals are in the midst of a 10-game losing streak and counting. I don't know when that's going to end. And there's just been a lot of issues going on with this team. At the beginning of the year, there were some lows, which we talked about. I talked about not scoring a lot of runs and different things like that. The pitching had just been really good, but I think the pitching has started to come back to earth a little bit. Outside of Brad Keller has been having a rough year overall, but then you just had some other tough decisions. You've had a lot of things that I think go into this, and I want to get into each and every one of those individually. So I'll start with the pitching. Danny Duffy's been terrific. Danny Duffy was due to have a couple of outings where he gets knocked around a little bit, but he's still giving his team a chance to win. Danny Duffy gave up 4 runs in his game, his last start against Detroit. That's enough runs to win a game. He still hasn't put the Royals in a position where a game was out of reach. Danny Duffy has been terrific so far this year. I've watched a lot of baseball. He's been one of the best starting pitchers that I've watched. He's been that good. And I think the late, great Therese Paylor, one of his favorite lines was, contract years are undefeated. If a guy's in a contract year, you're going to see the best version of him. Danny Duffy's in a contract year this year. We're seeing the best version of Danny Duffy than we've seen in a long time. Danny Duffy's always had the stuff. I've talked about that a lot already. He's always had the stuff. It's just been the mentals and just the third time through small things with Danny Duffy that he's seeming to turn a corner on this year. Outside of Danny Duffy, the starting pitching has been inconsistent at best, bad at worst. You've got situations where Brad Keller is supposed to be the ace of the staff. He's just not really pitching that well. Mike Minor's okay. Mike Minor has been what you kind of expected him to be. So I guess I don't want to rag on Mike Minor too much. He's gotten knocked around a couple of times, but he was kind of more of a guy where you could get a start out of him every time through the rotation, hope you score some runs and win a game. He wasn't a guy you were hoping was going to shut the other team down. Brad Keller, Brady Singer's been okay. Brady Singer, as of late, has been getting knocked around a little bit more. And I think that might just have to do with him only throwing 2 pitches this year. He hasn't really been throwing that changeup that we saw every once in a while last season. He's pretty much just been fastball slider this year. And I don't know if teams are just figuring out his tendencies to certain type of batters, but they've been hitting him a little bit better recently. But I won't say he's been bad. He's just been inconsistent. But he's a young kid, and you expect that from him. And I think that's the one thing that I think we got to level set about this Royals team is that even Brad Keller, if I'm not mistaken, Brad Keller's 25 years old. So Brad Keller's still young enough in his own. He's been around a little bit longer, so we look at him as a vet, and he's been playing at a high level for a decent amount of time, so we look at him as a vet. But he's actually a young guy. Brady Singer's a young guy. I want to get into Daniel Lynch a little bit later, who's also a young guy, just in his first few starts, and he's getting knocked around himself, but I think I'll talk about him a little bit more in the coaching, kind of general managing side of this. Jake Junis was doing really well before going to the bullpen. I'll talk about him a little bit more in the coaching and managing as well. I think there have been some tough decisions made with some of these players that I want to see rectified a little bit and that I hope don't derail things too much. The starting pitching, inconsistent at best, bad at worst. The bullpen's seems like the leash is getting a little bit shorter because guys just aren't playing that well. And then you had injuries. You got Jesse Hine and Kyle Zimmer both on the injured list right now. And Kyle Zimmer had been one of the best relievers on the team. He's one of the guys you expect to lean on. Probably was in the running to be the closer if things worked out, just depending on which one of those guys is which. I really like Scott Barlow as a pitcher, but he's been very inconsistent as well. You got a lot of these guys coming out the bullpen as far as Barlow and Jake Brent, and they're coming out of the bullpen and they're walking guys and hitting guys and they're shooting themselves in the foot before they even get a chance to get some footing. And that's been Barlow's problem too, which actually confuses me a little bit because his calling card is his control. He can control the strike zone. He can paint the corners. That's what made me really start liking Scott Barlow over these last couple seasons. And we're just starting to see it unravel. I don't know if it's fatigue with those arms being injured. He's being forced to pitch a lot more. I don't know if it's fatigue or kind of what's going on with that, but you hate to see it end up that way, of course. But I think just the inconsistency out of the bullpen hasn't helped. Even when the starting pitching's been good, they get knocked around as well. And we've seen them bring in some reinforcements with Chris Bubich. Maybe he eventually gets into the starting rotation, depending on how other guys fare. But the pitching was really picking the team up at the beginning of the year. Now the team is owing the pitching some run support, owing them some scores, and it's just not coming together the way you would like it to. Even still with that, the starting pitching isn't just going out there and getting shelled. Outside of a few occasions, they're still leaving it to where if the offense shows up and scores some runs, you score 5 or 6 runs, you can still win a baseball game. I want to say that the pitching isn't beyond repair. It does need some work. There needs to be some moves made to rectify some of the mistakes that have already been made, which I think there have been some mistakes made. I think you got to rectify those, and maybe you can turn the corner with that. But I hate seeing the pitching that was so good to start the year, picking the team up, not allowing runs when the bats were only giving you 1 run, 2 runs. They were still helping you win games, and now the bats aren't picking them back up. You hate to see that. And I guess let me give a little aside. After I get on this team a little bit, they're in the midst of a 10-game and counting losing streak. There's going to be some things going bad. I'm not just going to be a negative Nancy. I will give some positive, some things that I've liked over the last couple of weeks as well. I just want to get all of this out first because I've been dying to get it out on the podcast. So I need to vent. And you guys are going to be the people I vent to now about sports. I don't know if you feel privileged about that or what, but that's just kind of the situation now. That's what my life's. Anyway, let me continue this, and then I'll get into some positives, some things that I've seen that have encouraged me a little bit. The hitting hasn't really been capitalizing on runners in scoring position. I I think the Royals have been one of the worst teams with runners in scoring position over the last couple of weeks. You just have to score runs. How many bases loaded, less than 2 out situations have we seen end in no runs recently? Or runner in scoring position, less than 2 outs. Runners at first and second, no outs. You consistently don't capitalize on those, and you end up in the middle of a 10-game losing streak. That's what happens. The other teams are going to capitalize on them. It's just what it is. Guys are getting walked and getting hit and not capitalizing. You can't have that happen. And I think some of that also is going to go to coaching. I feel like sometimes these guys are coming to the plate just swinging away. They're not coming to the plate with a plan. And that to me is coaching. I think that the hitting coaching has to be a little bit better. You have to figure out a way to get these guys to come to the plate with a plan of attack. You got runners in scoring position and no outs. We don't need a home run. We just need to score runs. Guys are coming up, swinging out of their shoes. Guys are coming up, missing bad pitches, just things that you don't need to see happen and things that the other teams aren't doing for the Royals, and it's resulting in these losses. The hitting has to step up. There's enough firepower in this lineup every night to score 5 or 6 runs. You're going to have nights where you go against elite pitching, and those guys are just hard to figure out. You're going to have those nights, but even on those nights, you got to make sure you at least get their pitch count up enough to where you see enough bullpen arms to maybe score some runs late. But the Royals are in the business right now of making guys who are struggling or guys who aren't very good pitchers or at least not elite pitchers look like it. That's been what the Royals have been doing over these last couple of weeks against Chicago, against Cleveland, against Detroit a little bit, Minnesota as well. It's just been a rough go for the Royals recently, and the hitting has a lot to do with it. The bats have to wake up. You have to get guys like Whit Merrifield back in a groove. You have to get guys like Carlos Santana back in a groove. Carlos Santana, I don't know if it's just the mentals or what. He looks like an entirely different player when the Royals are playing his old team, the Cleveland Indians. Like, he looks like he doesn't know how to draw walks. He looks like he doesn't know how to make contact. I've watched Carlos Santana for years in Cleveland. I've never seen him look as bad as he did against the Indians in that 4-game set. It's just some of that stuff is confusing to me sometimes. And I don't know if it's the mental aspect, if they're just trying too hard for their pitchers, but there's something else going on. And that's why I think this team needs to make some changes. This team needs to rectify some of the mistakes that they've already made and get this figured out because it's not too late. The Royals are in 3rd place in the division. You got an uphill battle at least to get back in the division, but the wild card's in reach. Having at least an average or okay season this year, I think will be okay for us Royals fans. We're in the middle of a rebuild. We got a little bit excited at the beginning of the year, but we'll be okay with an average year. I'd be okay with an average year. We're showing progress. You get these young arms, which I think are the cornerstone of the franchise right now, are these young arms, which include Brady Singer, Brad Keller, Daniel Lynch, Chris Bubich, Jackson Kowar. You got a lot of these young arms. Asa Lacy, I don't know how I forgot about Asa Lacy. Asa Lacy's another one. You got these young arms that are the cornerstone of the organization. You have to figure this out as they continue to develop over these next couple of years. You're looking at having hopefully one of the better starting pitching rotations in the major leagues. And then you can be a little bit more liberal with your lineup. We'll see how that develops. But as of right now, I think most Royals fans will be okay with an average year if you ask them. It shows improvement. We weren't not being one of the worst teams in baseball, not losing 100 games, different things like that. I think we'd be okay with just an okay year, which we haven't seen a whole lot of in Dayton Moore's tenure here. I want to move into the general managing and the coaching. I praised Mike Matheny a couple of weeks ago. I think he's still doing a better job at manager than he's getting credit for. But I just think some of the decisions can hurt the team. One of the biggest decisions, Daniel Lynch in his second start against Chicago, a really good lineup that hits left-handers. I don't think Chicago's lost the game to a left-hander in 2 years. So already running your guy out there because Daniel Lynch has the talent. Daniel Lynch has top-end pitching talent. His stuff is amazing. He's going to be a good pitcher in the major leagues. His second start, and that's the day you decide to give Salvador Perez a day off, and he's throwing to a catcher making his debut. I think that's not setting him up to be successful. When you have one of the better defensive catchers in baseball, you have one of the more veteran guys who knows the White Sox better than anybody else. It's not a good idea. I didn't like it when I saw it before the game. And then Daniel Lynch got shelled. What did he give up? 7 or 8 runs in the first inning. it was a recipe for disaster. It never should have happened that way. And that's probably one of my bigger issues that I have with Mike Matheny and handling of Daniel Lynch. It's just that for when he came up and they sent Jacob Junis to the bullpen when he had been pitching really well as a starting pitcher. I didn't fully agree with that either. Eventually, we knew Daniel Lynch would make his way up to the bigs, but you got to at least let him fight his way here and don't just give it to him over a guy who's been pitching. I understand that the bullpen needed help, but the Royals they've been prone to bringing Chris Bubich up as bullpen help before, and he's up now as a bullpen arm. So I think that bring up bullpen help. Guys that you think are going to be bullpen guys with these injuries, bring up bullpen help. Don't bring up Daniel Lynch and then send another guy who's playing well, change his whole direction, who's also a young pitcher in his own. Jacob Junis, the door is not fully slammed on him being a starting pitcher in the majors, especially after what he was showing this year. But to just end that and bring up Lynch and send Junis to the bullpen, and threw a lot of stuff off, and Jacob Junis hasn't looked like the same pitcher since then. And I think that's just a GM and coaching failure in that situation. You have to protect these young guys. We're in a situation where we're trying to build something here. You got to protect these guys. And I do understand wanting to get Lynch here. I understand wanting to see what he can do. He's looking good in the minors. I get it, but it's a tough call for me to say send Jake Junis to the bullpen when he's pitching that. And your vision for him originally was as a starter. That's what we brought him up as. That's what his original vision was supposed to be. Eventually, maybe he does end up as a bullpen arm, but when he's showing you he can be a starter, and he's showing you that he can be a good starter for the back of your rotation, you at least got to let him show you can't be. And I think that was a major mistake. And I just hope Jake Junis can bounce back from that. He probably ends up back in the starting rotation at some point during this year. I hope it doesn't ruin him, because he's had a lot of things, a lot of up and downs, and a lot of things he's dealt with. I just hope that he can bounce back from this, get his confidence back, and be a quality pitcher at the major league level again. And there's a lot of small things like that I think have added up and compounded into bigger things. Daniel Lynch, I hope he bounces back well in his next start as well. I think he's actually starting the next game as I'm recording this. I'm pretty sure he's starting the next game. So I hope he bounces back pretty well in that start. You got to hope for that for him. He's one of your top prospects. He's one of the guys that you think can be a really good player for you. And I think he will be. He's got the stuff. He's got the demeanor. It's just about guys figuring him out and then getting the games called. So I don't know. I think there's been a lot of different things. There's been some lineup things as well that I think Mike Matheny could do a little bit better about. You got Jarrod Dyson over there, who's over the last few years since he left Kansas City, he's proven to be an okay enough hitter that when Michael A. Taylor's not really hitting in center field and Nicky Lopez isn't hitting from the shortstop position, Jarrod Dyson is going to be a better defender than just about anybody else in center. Give him a chance to play a little bit. I'd like to see Kyle Isbell come back up. He's being productive at AAA. He was productive when he was here. He was up and down a little bit, but at this point, what do you have to lose with getting him more big league at-bats? Just mix this thing up a little bit. I think you got to try to get Hunter Dozier going, but at some point, you got to figure something out there as well. I know Alberto's playing a little bit of third against lefties and things like that. I would like to see a little bit more shuffling around of the lineup. I'm really ready to get out Adalberto Mondesi back. I really hope he can come back healthy and continuing his development. I heard a lot of rumblings about people wanting Nicky Lopez to usurp him as the franchise's cornerstone shortstop. I just don't think that's a great idea. Adalberto Mondesi is probably one of the more talented young players in baseball. He's got a lot of pop to him, something that Nicky Lopez doesn't have. And then just a defensive savant. He's a defensive savant. He's a better defender than Nicky Lopez. Nicky Lopez, I think right now, to me, he's profiled as a better second baseman than a shortstop so far. Last year, he was a really good second baseman for the Royals playing with Adalberto Mondesi, which I think helped him a lot. And I think that's what he's profiled into being. He's profiled into being a better second baseman. That may be where he finishes up this year, and with taking some days out in the outfield. We'll see how that all plays out, but we need to get Adalberto Mondesi back. We need some hitting up the middle of the field. You can't have a shortstop and a center fielder not hitting. That's a recipe for disaster in baseball. One of those guys has to start hitting. And I think at this point, the best remedy for that is going to be to get Mondesi back. I don't know if there's another option. Bobby Witt Jr., As much as people love him, as much talent as he has, he's not ready yet. We don't want to rush him up when you have a guy like Adalberto Mondesi still in the organization. There's no reason to rush Bobby Witt Jr. up. He needs more minor league at-bats. He needs more opportunity to continue to grow and improve as a player. It'll be better for the Royals in the long run if you do that. There's no reason to rush him up right now. You're not thinking you're going to win a World Series. There's no real reason to do it. There is no real reason to do it. You got to just get Mondesi back. Hope he can infuse some life into the lineup. You need some talent around. You need to infuse some talent in the lineup, and we'll see how we can do that. We may see some other guys come up, but I think for now, what we probably end up seeing is we probably see Kris Bubic get his go in the rotation. We probably see if Daniel Lynch can't turn it around in a few starts, we might see him end up going back down to get his confidence back. We'll probably at some point during this year see Jackson Kowar or Asa Lacy, some combination, just depending on how everybody else goes. I think Jake Junis may eventually end up back in the rotation. I think I said that already, but injuries and attrition of a baseball season, those are the things that we see happen. I think you gotta turn it around. You gotta figure out a way to turn it around, and I think Mike Matheny's got to do that. He's got to figure out what it's going to take to turn this around. You have pieces on this team, and that's been shown. Andrew Benintendi has looked like a legitimate player over the last couple of weeks. I am really enjoying what I'm seeing from Benintendi. I knew he would break out of the slump. He's been proven at the major league level. He's an elite level talent, and he's showing it now. I think Andrew Benintendi's a really good player. He's been looking really good over the last few weeks. He's been the bright spot of the team. Hunter Dozier, at some point, Hunter Dozier he's gonna break out in a big way. It's been tough on him. It's been tough. He's hitting balls hard. He's hitting balls in the areas of the field where he should be getting hits. It's been a little bit tough. You like to see him capitalize. You just see him come up in multiple games. Runners, bases loaded, 2 out. Runners at first and second, 2 out. And he just gets this critical out. It's just tough. Jorge Soler, I think, is starting to shorten his swing at times, but he falls into that category of guys where I talked about at the beginning. These guys are coming up to the plate, and it seems like there's no plan. He comes up to the plate every time, and it seems like he's trying to hit a home run every time. And I understand that. You want him to break out. That's his signature skill. You eventually want him to provide that. But when you're in a situation where you just need to score runs, you're down 3 or 4 runs in the 4th or the 5th inning with less than 2 outs, we don't need a home run from you here. We just need to start a rally. We just need to continue getting guys on base. We can't do it all in one swing every time. Now, sometimes you can, and those things will come, but it's not going to happen every time. It's got to happen organically. He's got to organically get back to being who we know he is. He's in a slump right now, but he's still making some good contact on some pitches. He's still doing some good things. I think we got to be patient with some of these guys. I've liked what I've seen from Danny Duffy. I've enjoyed watching Danny Duffy pitch this year, but I've always been a huge fan of Duffy's anyway, just as a person and a baseball player. Benintendi's been really good over the last couple of weeks. The defense has improved a bit. Benintendi's been a little bit better defensively than I probably even anticipated, which I think is actually really refreshing to see. Michael A. Taylor and Nicky Lopez, we need one of those guys to start hitting. Michael A. Taylor, we haven't really seen him be a good productive hitter since the first series of the whole season against Texas. So we got to see him start hitting some more. We got to figure that part of it out. I'm not going to give up on watching the team just because coming into the season, I don't think anybody expected them to win a World Series. I'd have been surprised if they made it to the playoffs. I think that little taste we got early of what they could be playing at their best, I think it gave us a little bit of extra hope that we probably needed to have, but this team has that potential. We got to see how they capitalize on that, how they use that to continue to improve. I'm excited to see it, though. And I'll continue watching, especially for the younger guys. We'll get some younger guys in here. We'll get more infusions of talent. I don't think we've seen the last of Kyle Isbell this year. I think we'll see more Kris Bubic as the year goes on. He's looked really good in his relief stints that he's had so far this year. I think he gets a shot as a starter at some point. So we'll see how all that turns out. But I think overall, there's just a lot of different places where the Royals can be better. And I think that's a negative, but it's also a positive because it doesn't really box you into one thing that you need to do better to start winning games. If you starting pitching gets better again, you can start winning games. If the bats wake up again, you can start winning games. There's so many different avenues to get in there. We'll see how it all shakes out for the Royals. I'm excited to continue watching. It is discouraging. I will say that. I won't say that it's not. It's discouraging to continue to watch them lose games, but this is what builds the character in baseball. This is what builds teams back up. These are the days that they'll remember when they're a winning team again. They won't want to go back to that. So I'm excited to see how it turns out. I hope you guys are still staying tuned in with the Royals this year. It'll probably be a very up and down season. I don't think it would surprise anybody if this team went on a 10-game winning streak again at some point in the next month or two. So we'll just have to see how all of that turns out, but I'm excited to at least get to see it. But anyway, I think that's enough about the Royals for today. I talked a decent amount of time on them. I hope you guys enjoyed that, but I do want to get into Kansas football, KU football. Travis Goff, the new Kansas AD, did go ahead and decide to hire a new football coach going into the fall, which I think I was vocal about. I probably wasn't that big of a fan of that idea just because I feel like you want to give that coach a full cycle. You want to give him a full chance to get in here. But Lance Leipold, he's proven to be a program builder. He's proven to be a really good coach. I'll take him being here. His name has floated up anyway. I've seen that a decent amount. It seems like he cares. I've watched his introductory press conference and different things like that. It seems like he cares. He wants to be here at KU for a long time. He's only been at a few different places. Some of you guys who are hardcore college football fans, you might know about Lance Leipold just about from him being at Wisconsin Whitewater and really continue the tradition there of winning national championships. I think he won like 6 national championships. He wants to continue to establish some stability here, which I think is huge. I think he wants to establish some stability and then lay the foundation for being good down the road. He knows Rome wasn't built in a day. He indicated that in his press conferences and some of the interviews that I've heard. He has gotten his coaching staff intact. He's kept some guys around, which I think is huge. I don't know the other coaches that have been coming in have been cleaning house, bringing in their own guys. But now I think he's going to be really good at keeping some guys around, especially Coach Emmett. Emmett's probably the biggest name of guys he's going to keep around. Not only is he a good coach, but he's really good for the program. The players that are already here really enjoy having him here. We've seen a lot of these players start to trickle out of the program, even just when it was evident that they were going to find their own guy. Because a lot of these players had a lot of belief in him. You know, him coming in as a former head coach, he's coming right off of being a head coach and then keeping some of the guys around, bringing some quality coaches with him. I think it's just going to be exciting to see a new start. I think at this point at KU, anytime after we've had these rough years of these coaches, anytime you get a new start, it's going to be good for you. It's going to be good for the program. It's going to be good for the fans just to see something different. And this is a guy who's proven he can build something up to being great on the Division I level, of course, with recruiting top tier talent, different things like that. That remains to be seen. We'll see how that all works out. But I think as a Power 5 conference in the Big 12, you're going to have some players you can go get. You got to start some pipelines and things like that. And I'll admit, I'm not overly familiar with Lance Leipold yet. I will get familiarized with him over the offseason as I continue to study how he recruited at Buffalo, study where he was getting guys from there, which is something that I have not done yet, to see if he already has some established pipelines or if some of the guys he brought with him do. So we'll see. I'll bring some more of that stuff later as I find stuff out about him. But this is just kind of my first impression of him is that he cares to be here. He's excited to have the job. He seems like he likes golf. He likes working with Travis Goff, the new AD. He wanted to come in and make some of these guys stay comfortable with keeping their coaches around and things like that. And then also, he looks to be here for a long time. So I'm excited to hear those different things. He knows it's not going to be built overnight. And I think that was probably something that he was discussed with him before hopping into taking the job, is that, like, we're not going to fire you after 2 years. We know that this is a process. This program has been running to the ground. So many different coaches and coordinators and classes of players and just so many different things going on over the last few years. So I think he understands that. I think the understanding is there within the athletic department as well. I'm excited that KU found their coach. Again, I probably would have personally preferred just to see Coach Emmett get the year, go through a full cycle. But if you anticipate ending up with Lance Leipold anyway, then I'm not against going ahead and just letting him get started and seeing where he can take this program to. But I think him keeping Coach Emmett Jones around is going to be huge just because he has that familiarity. He can help with that transition, especially going into this first year of him being in the Big 12 as a guy who's been around the Big 12 for a while now. I'm helping him kind of transition into that. I'm just excited to see a fresh start again, a clean slate. At this point, like, it's crazy that the biggest thing to be excited about is a new coach and a clean slate. You just had so much stuff coming with Les Miles. It seemed like it just started to snowball out of control a little bit, even before all of the crazy allegations came out. It just wasn't a lot of improvement. The offense took so many different faces, so many different forms. Couldn't put together a legit offensive line. There's been a lot of things. There's been a lot of things that have happened over these last few years, just with Les Miles, with David Beatty, and just continuing down the line. We could go down and name Charlie Weiss and Turner Gill as well. It's been a rough go. To see him getting to come back here, I think that's interesting. I think this is something I just thought about. If I'm not mistaken, Turner Gill came from Buffalo as well. If I'm not mistaken, I think Turner Gill was the head football coach at Buffalo also when he was hired for KU. So that's an interesting connection too. With Lance Leipold being the head coach at Buffalo, of course, he made his name at Wisconsin Whitewater. But I don't know too much about how he likes to play. I don't know too much about where he recruits from or what the strength of his team's going to be. It seems like the strength of the Kansas Jayhawks next year is probably going to be within the running back room and being a running team. And then the defense really came on strong at the end of last season. There was a lot of talent on there, which Marcus Harris, who's probably one of the better defensive players on the team last year, he did enter the transfer portal. So we'll see if they can recruit him back to stay in or if he's going to go ahead and leave, which it looks like he's going to go ahead and leave, but we'll see. But anyway, we probably are looking at a team where you might run the ball a decent amount next year and try to control defensively what you can control. I'm excited to at least see it. I hope you guys are excited about that as well. I haven't really talked a whole lot about Kansas football at all on the podcast, but now these are going to be some major news stories as he continues to implement, as he continues to do his own recruiting and his own installing and different things like that. We'll get a chance to see all of that as the offseason goes on, and I'll continue to cover it and talk about it as much as possible. And that's that for today as far as KU football is concerned. The last thing I want to talk about is the Kansas City Chiefs, the schedule release of the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs have one of the tougher schedules to open the season, but I think it's fun because you get to right out of the gate, you get to test what you've done against what other contenders in the AFC have done. You started off with the Cleveland Browns. I don't really care who the Chiefs would have been playing in that first game at Arrowhead. They were going to win that game. So I think the Browns just got a tough draw. The Chiefs are so automatic early in the season. Patrick Mahomes is 10-0. He's averaging over 330 yards a game, and he's never thrown an interception in the month of September. Andy Reid's coaching statistics in September, he's one of the best coaches of all time in this month of September. He has just so much new stuff, so many new wrinkles and things he can throw at teams before they've had a chance to figure it out, that it's hard to beat his teams in September, even with the level of competition the Chiefs are going to be facing. The Browns are going to be a much improved team. They will be a good team in the AFC this year. I think they're probably like a 9 or 10 win team. So they're not going to be a walkover for most of the year, but I think they're just walking into a bad situation in week one with the Chiefs. The Chiefs coming off of that Super Bowl loss. The Chiefs hearing a lot of Browns fans talking about how close that game was. Patrick Mahomes getting hurt in that game, not really getting to finish his business against Cleveland. I just think there's too many things working against the Browns in this one, and that might be coming from a homer's perspective, but I would say that if I was a Browns fan, honestly. I really genuinely think that. I think just as good as the Chiefs have been recently, as good as Mahomes has been in September, if the Chiefs were in the Browns' spot, I wouldn't expect the Chiefs to win that game. That's just me being honest, I think, with everything at play. But I do think that week 2, Chiefs are going to get challenged against Baltimore. Baltimore's been chasing the Chiefs for a while. There's been a big storyline about the whole Orlando Brown trade. We get that right out of the gate. Sunday Night Football going into M&T Bank and getting to go up against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens once again. Eventually, Lamar's going to catch Mahomes. It's just the law of averages. He's going to beat him eventually. I don't know if it happens this year because it's September, like I said. It just seems like Mahomes and Andy Reid have been automatic in September. It's just not something that that you see a lot in football with these teams, especially with so much change in a lot of these teams over the offseason, so many different things being new, installing new things. But Mahomes is just different. Andy Reid's different. And I think they're going to be tough to beat early on in the season. But I think that's a fun game to watch. I think that'll be a really fun game to watch at Baltimore. Stadium should be rocking, should be fun. And then the last game in September, you got to go up against the young guy, Justin Herbert, who the last time we saw him in Arrowhead against the actual Chiefs, he pushed them to the brink. He did get a win in Arrowhead last year in the last week of the season, but he also pushed the Chiefs to the brink in his first game. If I recall correctly, that game went to overtime and was won on a game-winning field goal. So that was a hard-fought game. Justin Herbert came out, and that was his first start. He found out not long before kickoff that he would be starting. He came out and he proved what we would see from him for the rest of the season. It was just the start of his Rookie of the Year campaign. Those 3 games, you come right out of the gate, and then 4 of your first 5 games, you're going up against people who could be legitimate AFC contenders this year. And out of the Chiefs' schedule, the Chiefs have 7 games against playoff teams last year, and it's only 7. You think about 7 games against playoff teams, you think about 6 games against division. None of the other teams in the division made the playoffs last year. So that's 13 games right there that are already accounted for. So you can't really knock that. But 7 games against teams that made the playoffs is about as many as you can get in a division. When you're in a division where nobody else made the playoffs. Because you think about one other team in your division making the playoffs, that's 9 games. That's more than half of your games already that you're playing outside of division. So that's about as many as you can get without somebody else making the playoffs in your division. That's a lot of games against playoff teams. And you got playoff teams from both sides, which I think is going to really offer some good looks at what the Chiefs are going to be this year, and then what other teams have closed the gap. The biggest question is who we think closed the gap the most in the offseason to the Chiefs. And the biggest contenders to the Chiefs right now have been the Browns, Ravens, Buffalo Bills. Those have been the biggest contenders and people that we think have been trying to make moves to close that gap. The Chiefs play all 3 of them in the first 5 weeks of the season. You got Buffalo coming into Arrowhead Stadium in week 5, which is also going to be an awesome matchup. It'll be a fun game to see. A rematch. The Bills are going to want revenge. You got some interesting stuff. I'll get into the schedule a little bit more, the matchups as training camp comes and we know who's going to be playing. But as you look through this schedule, I find it hard to see the Chiefs losing. And this is crazy because the Chiefs actually have a fairly tough schedule. And as I look through these games, I just don't think they lose week 1. I think if they had a chance to lose in September, it will probably be the Baltimore, since we're going on the road, Sunday Night Football. And that's a good football team. It's probably to the Baltimore Ravens if there is a chance that the Chiefs lose one of those games, but I really don't anticipate it. I think you can see just a few games on the schedule where the Chiefs may lose. I think the Cowboys are probably a trap game, November 21st, getting the Cowboys coming in before the bye week. That's probably a trap game. That's a game I could maybe see the Chiefs losing. That Buffalo Bills game, if they come out with some juice and the Chiefs don't play their game, you could potentially see them losing to them. The Green Bay Packers game, if Aaron Rodgers is still on the Green Bay Packers, you could see that potentially being a loss if everything breaks their way. There are some games that you could see the Chiefs losing, but I don't see how I can look at this schedule and see the Chiefs losing more than 2 or 3 games next year. And that's crazy to say with as tough of a schedule as they actually have, but a lot of that happens early in the season. And if you think about those first 3 games being in September and how good they are in September, you start out with 2 or 3 of your toughest games of the entire year in the first 5 weeks. You think about coming out of that 5-0, the momentum and the confidence that you have, and then you go on a little streak where the next game where you probably could legitimately say a team is in your stratosphere is the Packers in week 9. You could be looking at going into week 9, 8-0, and maybe seeing a flex to prime time or something. So we'll see how it all works out. Just from looking at the schedule, I don't see the Chiefs losing more than 2 to 3 games. I want you guys to let me know what you think as well, because it wouldn't surprise me with the Chargers, the Chiefs potentially losing a game to them. I don't know about the Broncos if they don't get Aaron Rodgers. Now, if the Broncos get Aaron Rodgers, that changes this entire conversation because that puts them in the conversation for potentially competing for the division. I don't know if they win the division, but it'll be a competition for sure. Aaron Rodgers is an amazing quarterback. He would automatically upgrade that team to being a Super Bowl contender. And I think a lot of people, if the Broncos got Aaron Rodgers and didn't have to give up too much for him, a lot of people might even put them as higher on the list of Super Bowl contenders than the Chiefs. I wouldn't be surprised to see that either, just with all the weapons they have in Denver and the offensive line they've been trying to build. They always have good defense. You can see Aaron Rodgers being really good there, having a second act in Denver. But I think just over these last few days, as quiet as it's been, I anticipate him still being in Green Bay. Somehow, some way, they work it out. Maybe he's not the happiest with them. Maybe he's not happiest with the organization, but somehow, some way, I think they figure it out. I do think that the Chiefs are going to have a good year. I think the NFL's kind of done a good job with this whole schedule release. I guess the thing that they didn't do a good job about is that it was almost all out before the show. So it didn't really give people a reason to watch the actual schedule release show. I did go back and watch Andy Reid's interview about that. And one of the biggest things I took away from that is he compared Patrick Mahomes to Brett Favre and being with Brett Favre. And just as much as I've disliked Brett Favre recently for other reasons, I think as a football player, we all know he's one of the best of all time. And comparing him to him, just wanting to get that much better. Every year, he's wanting to get better. He's wanting to figure out ways to improve. And he just says that he's wired differently. You get around these guys that are wired differently, and he's one of them. And I anticipate improvement from Mahomes. I anticipate him having a really good season this year and seeing where he can take this team to new heights, maybe doing something that hasn't been done before, get to 3 straight Super Bowls, maybe win 2 out of 3. That all remains to be seen. We don't know, because going to 2 straight Super Bowls, that probably took a lot out of this team. You're probably going to see a lot of fatigue out of this team and different things like that. You're going to have those kind of things at play. But if somebody was going to do it in the modern NFL that wasn't Tom Brady, I don't know who else you would pick outside of Patrick Mahomes, maybe Aaron Rodgers. And those are probably the guys that you could see something like that happening. So we'll see how it all plays out. I do like that the NFL makes a spectacle out of the schedule release now, because it's just the dog days of NFL. There's not really a lot going on, and there won't be a lot going on from here until training camp starts and you start getting those kind of stories. You guys might hear me back off the Chiefs a little bit, start covering some college football, start covering some other things. So you guys might hear that from me. But this is exciting. I like that the NFL does this. I like that they make it a thing. I have the show. But so much of it leaked out that, like I said before, you didn't have to. You didn't have to watch the show. I'm excited about it, though. I'm glad to see the Chiefs are going to get tested this year. I think that's the best thing, though. The Chiefs are going to get tested. They're going to have some games that are going to be tough. And I'm ready to at least see how they respond to those, if they're going to continue to be able to keep that elite level that they have consistently played with over the last few years. The Chiefs, when they're out there on the field against most teams, it's evident quickly in the game that they're the better team. I'm interested and intrigued to see how long they can keep that level up, or if people are going to catch up. The Browns have been working tirelessly this offseason. They've had a great offseason. I think that they've probably done the most to close the gap, but I think their gap and the Bills' gap were so different that I think the Bills are probably still the closest to the Chiefs right now. But I think the Browns are nipping right there with the moves that they've made this offseason. Baltimore's going to be Baltimore, one of the best organizations in all of sports, not even just football. The coaching staff is great. And then Lamar Jackson's amazing. So that team's always going to be in the mix. I'm excited to see how the AFC plays out. If the Chiefs can continue to sustain that level of just being that much better than everybody. With Patrick Mahomes, you already have a head start in that, because you're going to have the better quarterback in just about every game. The only game you can look at on the schedule this year and say that you won't have the better quarterback, or somebody can argue that, is against Green Bay. No other quarterback on the schedule at this juncture of the career and accomplishments. No other quarterback's going to be at that level. Justin Herbert may work his way to getting there. He's not there right now. I don't know if Baker Mayfield ever gets there. I think Lamar Jackson, just with the way he plays the game and the way that they play, he'll never be able to enter that conversation. But as far as just overall football player, he can always be in that conversation. And then Josh Allen has the talent to get there. We haven't seen it quite yet as far as him surpassing, but he has the talent. Patrick Mahomes gives you a head start over everybody. He's going to be the best quarterback on the field in most of your games. If you want to call it a tie with Green Bay, that's okay. That's probably the only one that's even a toss-up at this point. It'll be good to see him get some challenges, though. He's got some good quarterback matchups. He's got some good challenges. The defense will get challenged in a lot of different ways. It's just good looking at this schedule and kind of knowing what you'll see from this team before the playoffs. And it'll be good to see them get tested. That's that for the Chiefs. You guys probably won't hear me go too in depth unless something crazy happens between now and the season, like Julio Jones gets traded to the Chiefs or something crazy. You probably won't hear too many more long segments on the Chiefs. I'll give a couple pieces of news like I did with KU basketball at the beginning, and then I'll talk about some of the other stuff that we have to talk about. Thank you guys for listening. You guys have wrote it out with me. It took me a little bit longer to get this one out. I've done this in a few different sections now. It's taken me a couple of sittings to get this one done, but I appreciate you guys for being patient with me, for continuing to look for the content, and for continuing to engage with the old content as you wait on the new content. So I appreciate that a lot. Continue to tell people about me. Continue to share this with your inner circle, people that you know love sports. Let's build a community of people that love sports. That's really what this is about. I love sports. I watch sports all the time. I want to build a community of people that love sports. Let's do that. Reach out to me on Instagram, SASports_podcast, YouTube, something about sports. sasports913@gmail is the email address for any inquiries or anything like that. And then make sure to go rate me. Those are the things that you'll always hear me say, but I want to make sure I share those things so you guys know where to find me. I do want you guys to let me know if I should make a Twitter. You guys that are listening still, I said it at the beginning too. Let me know if you guys are on Twitter. If you guys are out there and it'll be easier to engage with you on Twitter, let me know. I want to know that. Shoot me an email and say, hey, make a Twitter, or write me on Instagram or something. Say, hey, a Twitter's a good idea. I haven't been on Twitter in years. I don't really know what to look for out there, what we'll be doing, but we'll play that by ear. The marketing, communications kind of thing, those are my things. So I think we could figure it out. It'll just be about if that's the route we want to take, if that's where you guys are. So I want to see that. I might even do like an Instagram poll. For those of you guys that follow me on Instagram, I might do like an Instagram poll and ask if I should make one. So be sure to check my story over the next day or two. I might put a poll up and see what you guys think about that. One more time, I just want to say thank you guys for listening. Those of you guys that are still here, I'm excited to continue to bring you this content. I'm excited to continue to grow this community. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the content. I want your suggestions. Don't hesitate to reach out to me and just continue to engage with me. Continue to let me know what you think. Continue to give me feedback and different things like that. This is really fun, and I'm excited to continue it going. So until next time.